Podcasting with Ceri Jones.
Recently, I visited Elan Valley Reservoirs. It's a native wild brown trout fishery and it consists of 4 lakes totaling 850 acres. For those who are unfamiliar with the fishery, it's located in Powys in mid Wales and is run by Rhyadr and Elan Valley Angling Association. I was in the area visiting friends for the weekend and I didn't plan fishing, but I had my gear in the car. And being it was so close, I hadn't fished Elan Valley for many years, so decided to pay a visit. It's the top 2 reservoirs which are favoured with anglers, the reason being they're more accessible to fish. So on the Sunday morning, I decided to head up to the top lake, which is called Graig Goch. So for those of you who are interested to fish in it, I thought I'd put this episode up because it's a great venue. You get your permits from Rhyadr itself. Now on the main street there is a newsagent and it's called Daisy Powell, and if you're coming from south you come up to the square in Rhyadr, you turn left and it's approximately 100 yards, well less than 100 yards on the left hand side. Now when I went there, it was on a Sunday morning and it was 9 o'clock and it was open and there was a lovely lady behind the counter. I got a feeling it was Daisy Powell herself, so I decided to get the Elan Valley permit, which costs £12 for the day, while if you chose to have Clyde Wen, it was £10 a day. It is predominantly a wild brown trout venue, but I get a feeling occasionally it is stocked by the club. So after having my ticket, I just jumped in the car and drove up past the first 3 reservoirs up to Graig Goch. When you get to the reservoir, the road then takes you to the left hand side of the lake, and it takes you all the way up to the river mouth, up to the top end, and there you'll find a big car park. It's really convenient. It's a nice sized car park, a really nice spot because it's right beside the bridge where the inlet comes into the lake. The thing is, this Sunday morning when I got there, they only just lifted some restrictions on lockdown, so when I got there the car park was really busy, and I'm not really into crowds. And then you go to a place like Elan Valley because you just want to get away. There were motorhomes, people camping there. They even had barbecues on the go for the breakfast in the morning. So I decided it wasn't for me, so I turned round and head back towards the dam. And along the road then I was just looking for a nice little lay-by, and I found one about halfway down. It was a nice spot right beside the gate. And I was probably about 300 yards, 300 metres from the lake itself. So this is it. This is another thing you've got to remember, because this is hardcore fishing up here, you know. It's not easy. There's very few places on these reservoirs where you can just park up near the water's edge, if anywhere actually. You know, there's quite a distance from most of the places you park to get to the water's edge. So wherever you park up, there's going to be a fair walk. It's moorland and boggy in places and clumpy, so it's not an easy walk. So if you're not great on your feet, maybe this isn't the place for you. But one good thing about this place, there's no mobile phone signal, no text messages, no notifications, no one calling you, and your phone is silent, which is nice. If that's the sort of thing you want, then this is the place to be. After saying that, there is a minor side to that, because if you get into trouble up here, you're not going to be able to use your phone. So ideally, if you're going to go, you want to have some company with you. So then I set up with a floating line and 3 wets. Top dropper, I put a Pearly Invicta muddler on a size 10, which is a great top dropper fly. And in the middle, I had a wingless butcher. And on the points, I had a Blackie variant on a size 10. The top dropper was a 10 as well, but the middle was a 12. So once set up, I looked at the water and it looked perfect. A lovely breeze going from right to left. So I made my way down to the lake. It was overcast as well, which is ideal, but by the time I got to the water's edge, the breeze had dropped and the sun came out. And instead of the breeze coming across the bank now, it was coming directly over my shoulder and out into the lake. creating a calm water in front of me. So even at a 20-yard cast, you can see, you weren't really reaching the ripple. So I thought to myself, I can either stick it out or head off and find the ripple, because I don't think there was going to get much action there. So a few hundred yards down the shore, I could see a nice breeze and a ripple. So I reeled in and made my way down to the shore. But when I got there, the wind had picked up a little bit more. But not too much, but a nice comfortable ripple. Again, from right to left, and the cloud cover was back. And as we all know, wild brownies love dark skies and wind, no question. By far, that's the best conditions. They feed more confidently then, because they don't like to come up in the sun. So I was well pleased now. So the conditions are coming a lot more favourable. This is what I wanted. So it wasn't long, then the first few casts, bang, I moved the fish. And then another one, and then another one. Because it was a gentle ripple, I was figure of eighting. I was retrieving quite fast. In a ripple, I'd like the flies to be moving a little bit faster. And what was happening, I was missing the fish. Whereas in a wave, when you're pulling, the fish had a tendency to connect then and stick. And my floating line was a Cortland 444 Classic, the Beach Floater. A lovely line. And it's a number 6. And it's a relatively light line for reservoir fishing. And I love the line, it's great. But if I'd have had a lighter line, like maybe a number 4, it would have been a lot more sensitive, and then you feel the takes quicker, resulting in more hooked fish. I moved about half a dozen fish, and still they weren't connecting properly, and they were at distance. As time was going on, the wind was picking up, which I was like loving. I was casting out 45 degrees to the shore, and I'm pulling then, so my flies are moving quite fast. And now there was a big difference. As soon as I would get a take, bang, the fish were on. So it took 3 fish in quite quick succession. Just casting, walking, short lining. So feeling good with myself now. I'm all content. And most of the fish come to the top dropper, which was the Invicta muddler. But after a while, things started to change. And typical, when you're fishing for browns, when the sun came out, the fish went off. So I only had a few casts and started to walk again. But you found the takes dried up. So I knew that more than likely there were fish all the way down this bank. So I felt that if I was to carry on while the sun was out, I'd be covered in fish. But it would be a waste because they won't take. I decided to stop, and it was only until when the cloud cover would come, I started to walk again. And as the cloud did come, the wind picked up, and it was lovely then. By doing this, I'm not wasting precious water. Good water where there were probably fish. So now the conditions are right, and the chances are these fish would take now. So I carried on walking, casting as I went, and I was fishing the bank, first of all with a short line, then a longer line, and then I go a little bit further, and a shorter line, then a long line. So you're covering good water as you go down. And while doing this, I took another 3 fish in quick succession again. And what was happening, as soon as the flies hit the water, I'd give a good pull. The Invicta muddler would pop, and that would attract the fish to come and see the flies. So creating that wake initially with drawing the fish in. The great thing is when you got the wind like this and wild browns, your success rate goes up and your confidence is there, because they don't get much time to inspect your flies. You know, they're seeing these flies coming across the surface and they're just up and down, you know, and they hooked then. So I had 6 to the net, and they're all practically identical. And they're all roughly the same size. They're all about the 12 ounces or thereabouts. But the great thing is, they are wild. And when you hook into them, they fight twice their size. A couple of times I'd strike, I think, yes, I'm into good fish. £1.25, maybe £1.50 even. But no, you know, they're so strong for their size. Lovely condition and a joy to fish for. So I come to the end of my fishable bank. My stomach was rumbling and it was 2 o'clock. I thought, right, let's get some lunch inside me. So I went back to the car to have my sandwiches and drink. While I was there, it started to rain and the wind dropped. It wasn't looking great because the water was all flat now and that drizzly rain. And so I sat it out and waited for a while just to see if things would lift. At this point, I'd give you a tip. If you fish in Elan Valley or any other large reservoir and if you're going to be fishing the cast and walk method and working the bank down, is to park up. Just walk up about 100, 200 yards and then start fishing from that point. That way, when you're fishing and working the bank down, eventually, when you finish that bit of bank, you're right by the car. That way, you haven't got a long trek to go back to the car when you've finished fishing the bank. It's worth having a think about doing. And another tip as well is don't take a bag with you. Travel as light as you can, because it can be tiring. Because I just had my floating line attached to my rod, and also took my intermediate, which I usually always carry in the back of my waistcoat, and I just took a box of flies. There's nothing worse than having the bag on your shoulder walking in this terrain with all your gear. I've seen people walking with a big Shakespeare box, these big blue boxes with everything in there, full selection of lines and flies. They'll kill themselves. So just with my net on the back, I was free to walk and comfortable. I had my breathable waders on, because you really do need the waders here. Not only is it good when you're fishing to be wading, and especially in difficult areas to fish, because when you're walking along these the fields getting to the lake, it's very clumpy and boggy, as I mentioned. It could get messy, because actually on 2 occasions while walking back to the car, I went up to my knees. Just another point worth mentioning as well, because most people will be fishing, if you look up from the dam, all along the left dam bank. But if you wanted to fish the right dam bank, then there's no road, as far as I know. Well, there's not. If you want to fish the far bank, you have to go up to the car park up the top of the lake where the inlet comes in, and then work it down and just walk down that shore then. There is great fishing there. I've done it before. So if you want any more information on the Elan Valley Reservoirs, there are leaflets to have if you're in Rhyada, if you call into the newsagents. But the club has a website with all the information on, which I'll put in the podcast notes on my website. They have got other waters. They've got the Clydwen Reservoir, which is another wild brown trout water, far bigger than Elan Valley. In fact, it's bigger than the 4 of them put together, totaling 950 acres. There is a good chance of having a good fish on Clydwen. I've seen nice fish come out. I was there one day and I saw a fish around about 3 or 4 pounds. So they're there to be caught, but in the main, probably they're the similar size to Elan Valley. They've also got the rivers you can have a ticket on as well. And also, if you're into your rainbow trout fishing, there's Llangwyn, which is just outside Rhyada, a lovely, lovely lake, and I've been there many times, and that is stocked on a regular basis. Going back to Elan Valley Reservoirs and my experience there when I went, for the time of year I expected sport to be slow. End of July into August, a lot of lakes they warm and the activity just stops until the evening. A couple of weeks ago I fished Talabont Reservoir, and I didn't have a take there until about 9 o'clock at night. It's known as a night, or rather an evening water, but because the time of year there, when you were wading, I was wading in, because it's been so warm lately, I didn't take waders, I just went in my shorts. It was like bath water. But the great thing is about Elan Valley, because it's high up, the water is cooler for that much longer. So there was loads of action I had for that time I fished it in the day. So I was really pleasantly surprised when I went up to Elan Valley, how active the fish were in the daytime. After sitting it out in the car waiting for the weather to lift, it didn't change. In fact, it got worse. The rain got heavier, and the wind just went. So it's like a kiss of death. There's not a lot you can do in those conditions. So I decided to pack up and head home. It was a bonus for me because I didn't set out to plan to fish, and I had a pleasant 4 hours. And after experienced what I did, I will definitely try and make it before the end of the season again. Maybe even have a day on Clydwen. So I hope these tips and information is of some help. And if you do go, give us a shout and let me know how you get off. If this is your first time tuning in, make sure you catch all future episodes by clicking subscribe via the links on my website, castingwithkerryjones.com. or via iTunes or your favourite podcatcher. If you like what you've heard on this episode, feel free to drop me a line via my website. Tell me what you've enjoyed, ask a question, or better yet, tell me what you want to hear more of in the future. And if you're looking for additional tips, tackle reviews or venue information, or just want to see what's been hitting the back of my net lately, search up Casting with Ceri Jones on Facebook or follow me on Instagram. And if you still want more, I'm regularly uploading video content onto the Casting with Ceri Jones YouTube channel, so just check that out and subscribe over there too. Wherever you follow, subscribe, comment or message, I look forward to catching up soon for a good fishing chat. Well, I think that's all for now, so until next time, tight lines and don't strike too soon.